Hello, hello, hello. I think I'm on channel 2. I need this too? Okay, well, this is going to be interesting.
Do you want us to pull it up?
Oh yeah, we can just do that. How about that?
Oh, that's the...
I'm like the max, right?
That's, yeah.
Okay.
You're so tall. Just put it...
This is good.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah. Good morning, buenos dias. Thank you for having me and thank you for coming out this morning. Loving my son Joel taught me that love is not safe, but love is good. Losing my son Joel taught me that trusting in God is not safe, but trust is good. Being Joel's daddy taught me that though I could not keep Joel safe, my love for him and my trust in him is good. I want to share with you what it means to be an earthly father with a broken child. I want to shout at you how much I love Joel, though he could not work for my love. And I want to show you while Joel's love for me, while his trust in me, while his willingness to abide with me, to melt into my side as we sat for days and weeks with him in my arms was of the greatest joys of my life. I want to reveal to you the love of a father, because of the love of a father is good. I read these words. I read these words at my son Joel's memorial service. My wife, Amy, and I have 5 children, and Joel was our 3rd. And in March of 2014, Joel succumbed to the spread of a rare brain cancer called ATRT after a 4-year battle with the disease. And I miss his laugh and his sweet face and his joy. And sometimes I have dreams that he's back with us and I have to wake up without him. And all the bitterness and the sweetness that memory provokes. My name is Ryan Green. I'm a game designer, I'm an artist and a programmer. I used to make websites. I used to make web applications for a healthcare company. And my business partner Josh and I run a small video game company called Numinous Games, and we founded it in 2012 and we operate it from our 2 offices. I'm in Colorado and he's in Iowa. And we're best known for a project that we created and started in 2013 called That Dragon Cancer. See if I can do this. There we go. It's an interactive memoir of our son Joel and our family. And in many ways, I find it fitting that I was invited here by my friend David to talk to you about the subject of commitment. Because or in dictionary terms, commitment means the state or quality of being dedicated to a cause or activity. And I feel it's appropriate because our commitment as a team and in a family to remembering Joel's life and his death have encapsulated my work, my creative work, for close to a decade. The work of my wife and my children and our friends, we completed this work to wrestle with his loss and his memory. And so I wanted to talk to you about commitment. Commitment can serve as a lifeboat to our souls, our mind, our will, and our emotions. And commitment to our beliefs can give us hope. And commitment to our families and our jobs can give us meaning. But commitment also exposes us for who we are, what we believe. And it exposes us to others for like what we truly value, because it's how we choose to spend our time. And commitment can alienate us from our loved ones. And our service to our commitment can keep us and our passions away from the people that we love. And when the commitment becomes only loyalty, and sometimes it's just duty, and it's mixed with resentment and frustration, it can poison those relationships around us. And as fellow creatives, I hope that, I assume that you understand this creative struggle. Because we as creatives have a commitment to our craft. We get into this because we're passionate about what we do. And it can be all-consuming. It can take up all of our time, all of our focus. It can take our presence. And I'd like to speak to you today about the virtue and the vice of commitment. And I want to challenge you today with a question. Are your commitments worth the cost? Now, I've spent most of my life far too committed to my work. This started in high school. And in high school, I was given the opportunity by our friendly librarian to learn how to make web pages and learn how to use Photoshop. And so I spent a lot of time in the last year of high school doing that. And then, through some help of my mom, connected me to an internet service provider in town, in our small town in northern Colorado. And he gave me the opportunity to make web pages for him. And I loved that work. And I spent a lot of time doing that work. And I remember the end of high school, I didn't really want to be there. I remember I was sleeping through calculus and all the way until I failed it completely. And coming out of high school, I was committed to my work in a way where I didn't go to college, and I instead decided to keep working. And that brought me a couple years later to St. Louis, and then when I moved back to Colorado, I got a job at a big healthcare company, and I was a pretty big deal, right? I was 20, just turned 20 the week before I got the job. And you should have seen my boss's face when he's like, "How old are you?" And I'm 20, and I was in a grown-up job, right? And that hard work paid off, and I worked at that healthcare company for the next 10 years. And as we were raising our small family, and I was working there when our third son, Joel, was born. And I took a lot of pride in being like the youngest person in the team. And I really liked what I did as a UI designer, but I always felt creatively unsatisfied. Right? There was always that like grass is greener on the other side. There's those things that I really truly wanted to do if I could fulfill my passions, and that was video games and filmmaking. And often I would spend time moonlighting. So I would take side jobs and on those side jobs, that would take me away from my family, right? Because I'm doing the work on the day and I'm doing the work at night. Often my family would be with me. Amy and I did video production together, my wife, but also it would take me away. And so when the doctors told us that Joel's cancer had come back and that there was nothing more that they could do, it changed a lot of things in my life. Me being a man of faith, I was desperately praying for him and for Joel's deliverance and that he would be miraculously healed. And you know, when you're in kind of maybe that bargaining mode too, you're doing self-reflection and you're like, what's going on in my life? And I remember one morning I was praying for Joel, and I just felt like arrested. I just felt stopped in my tracks because I had this feeling that I had been doing something wrong, right? If you've ever had that feeling. Because I was a UI architect. It was a job that we had made for me. We had created it for me. I was making a lot of money. I felt like I was in an important position. It was a very large project that was growing. We were creating an electronic medical record system. And I was one of the chief UI designers, and so it felt like a big deal. And it was a project that everybody wanted to be associated with, and so I was one of the lead tech guys. And so, like, if somebody had an idea and I didn't like it, I let you know in the meeting in front of everybody. and I came and went as I pleased. Sometimes I'd get to work after 10 and leave before 5, just because I could. And I was kind of being a big jerk. And I didn't think I was being a jerk. I thought I was like funny and had a winning personality and that my ideas were the best and they were the greatest and I should get my way because that made sense. But I had this growing reputation that I was difficult to work with. And then something changed. So this old boys club that I was in, my boss left, and the cracks started to show. And the new boss didn't understand why Ryan always got his way and kind of behaved however he liked and always made a fuss at meetings and always thought always thought I had the best view of things and the best decisions, but I didn't have the context I needed to be making the right decisions. I was just throwing tantrums, creative tantrums, right? And Joel got sick and I kind of checked out of the job because there's that mix of like, well, if something bad is happening, then I feel justified in doing what I want. But my work was really kind to us. They raised money for us. They covered our first year of healthcare expenses by raising over $6,000 and giving it to us. And so they were really supported, but they didn't quite understand what was happening with Ryan. And because I was checked out and because I wasn't present, like they were moving on without me. They needed to. The ship needs to keep going. And that made me mad. And I remember just kind of acting out and feeling left out and not understanding why everything wasn't going my way anymore. And I had started to take those side jobs, those things that I was passionate about, those game projects. And so this brings us back to my prayer that morning. I realized I was taking advantage of my friends. I was taking advantage of my work. I wasn't being a good employee because I was letting my behavior, I was letting them believe that it was because of Joel's illness, not because I was just being a jerk. And that side work that I was doing was affecting my work performance, and I just kind of let them think that it was because Joel was sick. And when I was there that morning, I realized like that's not accurate and I'm not being honest and I really need to come clean with them. And so I gathered the HR, my boss's boss, and I came clean. I said, this is what I've been up to and I'm really sorry. And of course they're like, what do I do with a dad who has a sick son with cancer? They turned out to be very kind to me and very generous with me. And they let me decide if I wanted to stay or if I wanted to go. And so I decided that I should go. And they even gave me a small severance. And this showed me that you're not helping anybody if you're clinging to a position just because of the power that it gives you, or the money that it gives you, or the title that it gives you. You're taking advantage of somebody's kindness or their gentleness or their pocketbook, like I was. And I learned that how you live your life and how you treat people matters. What we create should matter as much as how we create it. And I'd like to tell you that I learned my lesson. I'm not convinced I did, but over the next few years, I traded one form of creative commitment, right? For another form of creative commitment, the one I wanted, right? I was finally working in games, and the video game company that I had been doing work for allowed me to continue to work with them. I still had a job, we could still pay our bills, and Joel didn't die. The cancer did not spread like we anticipated it, and instead of entering the final stages of his life, where the tumor just spreads and it takes over, the tumor didn't. And they offered us radiation, and we had 6 months of no evidence of disease. And it was a wonderful 6 months. And I joined the game company. Joel turned 2. And games were why I became a programmer. And so while I was working for that company, who was in Oregon, we were going to move our family to pursue my dream. And I was going to make games that represented how I saw the world, and it was going to be like really full of beauty, of faith, and the perils of darkness. And while I was there, I worked on a few projects that I was proud of. It was good, but they cost too much, and They didn't sell that many copies. And so I was faced with yet another failure, one of losing my job, and two, not making games that, justified keeping me on board. And Joel was still alive, and I was still working a lot. And so, when I look back over my career, I think about creatively how many nights I wasted. Like how many all-nighters that I pulled to meet some deadline that the boss set because I wanted to please them. And I chose them over pleasing my family over and over again. And for what? For work that's it's gonna burn, right? It's gonna waste away, it's gonna disintegrate. Is there value in the things that I'm spending my life pursuing? And so I had to challenge myself. What does that look like? And cancer has this funny way of pulling you out of the rat race. Suddenly, the things that I put so much stock in, like getting to the next position or getting the next project or getting creative freedom or anything like that, doesn't become so important, and cancer forces you not to make plans, and you kind of have to live in the moment, and you have to depend on the kindness and the generosity of strangers, and things don't feel important anymore. And it gave me vision, and it gave me perspective, and it reminded me that I am mortal and that we're all very fragile. But more than what it gave me, it took from me. And a few weeks into Joel's recurrence, when they told us that the cancer had come back, Joel got very dehydrated, and we spent a night in the hospital that I'll always remember. And we represented it in the game through this. Can you pull up the other slide that's open? Sorry, go to the other presentation that's also open and load it from there. David, if you press escape and then load the other presentation, flip over to, go to window, up, go back to the keynote, go to window, up at top, menu up on the top, to the right, next to help in the center. All right, so if you go to if you look there, okay, the other one, the one that's not the without video. I apologize.
Ông lo thì kêu, tại vì ấy.
Yep. Now go to the one that says Creative Mornings. There we go. And now play that one. Awesome, thank you.
Enjoy this breathing, big, deep gulps. Okay, Joey, that's enough. Breathe, kiddo. And he does. And I met his face of sun and tears and juice. And then he vomits, and I get it. I always get it. No! Don't hit your head on the bars, Joel. Joel! I know you're mad. Please stop. Please. Stop. Yes, sir. I plead.
A night like that really happened, and no matter what I could do, what I did, I couldn't comfort Joel. I couldn't do what every good father is, and that's bring comfort to your son. And in that moment, I prayed and I felt a response, and that night stuck with me. And see, when going into video games, I didn't really expect to make a video game about cancer. In fact, my business partner and I were going to make whimsical games, fun games, ones that everybody would want to play and that they would want to buy. And yet, when we conceived of doing a project about Joel, as Joel was still alive, and as I was pursuing this path of independent video game development, we originally conceived of it as an art installation, or maybe like where we could do interactive paintings where you could navigate the realm of cancer. But this night stuck with me, and I had the thought, well, that would make an interesting video game. And my wife said, that's a terrible idea. And yet what it represented in me is this realization that what happens when the video games and the levels we're so used to being able to defeat through our expertise and through our will and our commitment and everything else, what happens when those levels are broken and we can't overcome? What happens when the mechanics fail? And where are you left in the middle of that? And in that, I wanted to share a seed of hope, of grace, of those things that happen that we don't deserve, those gifts that we're given. And so with this idea and this scene, an early version of the scene in hand, we decided to go all in because it felt like it was a commitment worth pursuing. It felt valuable creatively. And so we lived off of our savings. My business partner, Josh, said, I'm in. And that's what we did. And we made That Dragon Cancer over the period of 3 years while Joel was sick with cancer and after he passed away. And we worked with our family and with our friends, with my business partner, and it was creatively the most successful and fulfilling and meaningful and satisfying period of my life in my career, but it was also the most devastating. And I'd just give it all up just to have another day with him. You know, because we don't have time to commit to the wrong things in our life. And I wish I had a happy story to give you. And if you continue to listen to my story, you'd hear more about my imperfections, more about my struggles, more against my anger and my failures, and you'll learn that meaningful work and accolades don't fix the relationships around you. So if you're pursuing it, take care of your relationships, because those problems don't go away just because you have meaningful work. And you'll learn that it's not good to work alone. And so commit to others that will work with you and that will commit with you and that are willing to buoy you up when you struggle, are willing to deal with your anger, are willing to help you be a better person. Be transparent with them and treat them well with respect and kindness, because you're going to need them when things aren't going well. And that you ultimately would learn that commitment is a commitment to change. That if in the process of pursuing our creative work and committing to our relationships and committing to our passions and everything else, we're not committed to being different than when we started, of learning what our weaknesses are and working through them, that it's just not worth committing to, right? So I want to leave you with the trailer for our game, and then I'll take any questions that you have. And I just wanted to thank you very much for letting me be here and share with you.
What does do? Walk. It comes to bad times. And the warm wet times and the cool fur dies. Yes. Maybe it's was a infection.
Do you want to celebrate Oxygen Day like kids are doing with their treatments? I guess maybe you don't, 'cause you're not on a business plan, but on someone else's day, they always bring a cake and they say, happy up there, day to you.
I'm sorry, guys. It's not good.
Basically thinks we should report with the radiation. It kind of freaks me out, but it could be another miracle.
There's a story in the Bible where Jesus and his disciples are on a boat. And a furious storm hits the sea, and everyone thinks they're about to die. You know who Jesus is? He's asleep in the back of the boat.
So I just want to encourage you today that commitment to love, I believe, is worth the cost. Thank you.